My name is Mallory Keene. I'm 29, and for most of my life, my family has treated me like the smoke alarm, loud, annoying, and only useful when something's already burning. They didn't call me dramatic when I stayed quiet. They called me cold. They didn't call me helpful when I stepped in. They called it what you're supposed to do. And my little sister, Alyssa, 26, she was the miracle child, the one who could do no wrong, the one whose mistakes always had an explanation, a reason, an excuse that somehow, miraculously, looped back around to me. If Alyssa tripped, it was because I walked too fast. If she crashed, it was because I didn't stop her. If she failed, it was because I succeeded too loudly. It sounds ridiculous until you live it long enough that you start editing your own reality just to survive family dinner. Let me paint the pattern. When Alyssa was in high school, she took Mom's car without a license and scraped it up so badly the driver's side looked like it had been chewed. I was 3 hours away at a job training program, but somehow my parents decided it was still my fault. I should have seen the signs. I should have checked in more. I should have kept her from making reckless choices. When she dropped out of community college after one semester, my mother cried like she'd lost a child, and then turned those wet eyes on me and said, "You make her feel inadequate." Like my life was a mirror she couldn't bear to look into. Then came the small disasters: fired from retail, dumped by a boyfriend, overdrafted bank accounts, credit cards maxed out. Each time my name was pulled into the autopsy. You should have helped her practice interviews. You should have given better relationship advice. You're good with money. Why didn't you teach her? I did. I tried. She rolled her eyes and told me I was controlling. And somehow, even that became proof of my cruelty. Meanwhile, my parents were not rich, not poor. Dad worked as an insurance adjuster. Steady income, nothing glamorous. Mom did part-time bookkeeping for a dental office. They rented a 3-bedroom house, about $800 a month. Suburban yard, 2-car garage, the illusion of stability. And I had what my family considered the ultimate sin. I was doing well. I'm an industrial electrician. Union track, hard jobs, long days, dangerous work. I started young, got licensed, worked my way up. My hands have scars from live wire scares that still make my stomach clench when I think about them. But I was proud of what I built: a paid-off truck, a house in my name, savings that made me feel safe for the first time in my life. Alyssa, on the other hand, bounced between minimum wage jobs for 8 years. She worked part-time at a pet grooming place and lived with my parents temporarily. Temporarily, like a season that never ends. She paid no rent because she was saving. She'd been saving for 6 years. What she did have was a closet full of online shopping boxes and a constant need for rescue. 3 years ago, my parents started calling with shortfalls. Dad's hours were cut. Mom's office reduced her schedule. It began with 1 month. "Just $300, honey. We'll catch up next month." I sent it without thinking, because no matter how they spoke to me, no matter how often I swallowed blame that wasn't mine, some part of me still wanted to be good. Then it happened again, and again, and suddenly I was sending $400 every month, like clockwork. I told myself it was rent support. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was helping them avoid eviction. But what I was really doing, what I refused to admit, was funding Alyssa's entire life. My money wasn't help. It was a cushion, a trampoline, a soft landing pad that made sure she never had to learn how to stand on her own. 6 months ago, that truth finally crawled out from under the table and stared me in the face. Sunday dinner. Every other week, the same routine. Pot roast, small talk, my parents pretending we were normal. That day, I'd just returned from a brutal 2-week job, 12-hour shifts installing electrical systems in a manufacturing plant. My body felt like it had been wrung out, but the overtime pay was solid, and for the first time in a while, I walked into my parents' house thinking, maybe tonight will be peaceful. My boyfriend Ethan had asked me not to go. "You don't owe them your Sundays," he'd said, standing in my kitchen while I put on my jacket. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, like he could already see the storm coming. "I'm just eating dinner," I told him. Ethan didn't argue. He just kissed my forehead and said, "If they push, you walk. Promise me." I didn't realize then that promise would split my life into before and after. When I arrived, Alyssa was already there, looking irritated like the world had personally offended her. Mom was setting the table. Dad was carving the roast like he was performing a sacred ritual. Mallory, you're late, Mom said. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. I was 10 minutes early. Traffic, I said, because correcting her would have been labeled starting something. We ate. The pot roast was good. My mother could always cook comfort into a room that didn't deserve it. Dad talked about a difficult client. Mom mentioned office drama. Safe topics. Surface level. The kind that kept the cracks from showing. And then Alyssa cleared her throat. That sound. Soft, delicate, like she was about to announce a tragedy that required immediate funding. My car's been making this grinding noise, she said, pushing food around her plate, when I shift gears. Mom's face tightened with concern. Oh no, honey, did you take it in? Yeah, Maple Street Auto. Alyssa paused, dramatic as always. It's the transmission. They said it'll be like, 200. Dad frowned. That seems high. That's what they said. Alyssa sighed, looking straight at me now. If I don't fix it, it could become 3,000. I kept chewing, slow, quiet, because I knew the choreography. This wasn't a conversation, it was a setup. I don't have that kind of money, Alyssa continued, voice turning syrupy. I'm barely making ends meet. I set down my fork gently. Have you been saving anything from your paychecks? Her eyes narrowed. It's hard to save when you make minimum wage, Mallory. You've been there 8 months, I said, keeping my tone neutral, like I was reading a weather report. Saving even $20 a week would have added up. I have expenses. Like what? Gas, food, clothes, going out. Alyssa's cheeks flushed. Life costs money. You don't pay rent here, I said, still calm. And Mom cooks most meals, so those are mostly discretionary. The room went cold in a way I could physically feel, like someone opened a freezer door behind my neck. Not because I'd lied, but because I'd said the quiet part out loud. Mom jumped in quickly, like a referee trying to stop a fight. Mallory, honey, you know Alyssa's struggling. Dad's voice followed, heavier. You make good money. Family helps family. There it was, the sentence that only ever traveled one direction. I already help every month with your rent, I said, and I watched Alyssa's face twist like I'd slapped her. Oh, wow, she sneered. So now you're throwing it in our faces. I'm not throwing anything, I replied. I'm stating reality. You're asking me to pay for her car on top of the rent money. Alyssa's voice sharpened. Maybe if you taught me better financial skills when we were younger, I wouldn't be in this position. I actually laughed. One short sound I couldn't stop. I tried, I said. You told me to mind my own business. Mom's eyes flashed. Mallory, you know she's sensitive. Sensitive isn't the problem, I said quietly. She's 26 and can't afford a repair because she doesn't save. That's not sensitivity, that's poor planning. Dad set down his fork like a judge about to deliver a verdict. That attitude, he said slowly, is exactly what we need to discuss. I felt my stomach drop. What attitude? I asked. Your constant criticism, Mom said. Every dinner, you find something to argue about. You make Alyssa feel bad about herself, Dad added. You refuse to help when we need you. I stared at him. I pay $400 a month toward your rent. And you never let us forget it, he snapped. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears right on cue. See? She makes everything about money. I looked at all three of them and waited for someone, anyone, to realize how insane this sounded. Nobody did. Dad leaned forward, voice firm like he'd rehearsed this in the mirror. Mallory, he said, we need to have a serious conversation about your role in this family's problems. I blinked. My role? Yes, he said. You've been causing issues for years. The room tilted. Not physically, but internally, like something in me finally slipped off its axis. I searched their faces for a crack, a tell, a sign this was a cruel joke. Mom nodded. Alyssa nodded through tears. Dad stared like he was proud of himself. You think I'm the reason you have problems, I said, my voice low. Yes, Dad replied. Your judgmental nature, your criticism, it creates a toxic environment. I swallowed, and it felt like swallowing glass. Then I nodded once, slow, controlled. Interesting, I said. Mom frowned. What's interesting? That you've convinced yourselves the person paying your bills is the problem, I said, and my tone was so calm it scared even me. Alyssa sniffed. There you go again, throwing money in our faces. I stood up. My chair scraped the floor, loud in the silence. You're right, I said, looking at all of them. I am the problem. Mom's eyes widened. Mallory. And I'm going to solve it, I finished. I walked out before they could respond, before my body betrayed me with shaking, before my voice cracked and gave them the satisfaction. Outside, the air felt sharp. I got into my truck and drove home with my hands steady on the wheel and my heart doing something strange, like it was turning from flesh into stone. At every red light, memories surfaced like bruises. The emergencies that were really Alyssa's credit card bills. The Christmas I paid for gifts, because Mom cried she couldn't do it this year. The dinners where I listened to Alyssa complain while my bank account quietly bled. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I wasn't angry in a loud way. I was angry in a clean way. Inside, I opened my laptop. The automatic transfer was scheduled in 3 days, $400. My finger hovered over the cancel button. A part of me, an old, trained part, whispered, "If you stop, you'll be the villain forever." And another part of me, quieter but stronger, answered, "I'd rather be the villain than the wallet." I clicked cancel. Then I opened the family group chat and typed, "After tonight, I've realized you're right. I'm the problem in this family, so I'm solving it by removing myself. Effective immediately, I won't be contributing to rent anymore, and I won't be attending family dinners. This will give you a chance to figure things out without my toxic influence. Good luck." I hit send. My phone exploded immediately. Calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it off. And for the first time in years, my house was silent in a way that felt like breathing. Somewhere in that silence, I remembered Ethan's words. "If they push, you walk." I'd walked, but I had no idea yet how far my family was about to chase me once they realized the money was truly gone. The next morning, my phone felt like a bomb I'd buried in the backyard and forgot about, until it started vibrating again in my pocket. I turned it on just long enough to see the damage. 48 missed calls. More texts than my screen could load without lagging. "Mom, please answer. This is hurting me." "Dad, we need to talk like adults." "Alyssa, you're seriously doing this? After everything?" And then, from an unknown number, "You're tearing this family apart." I stared at that last one for a full 5 seconds before I laughed, soft and humorless. Because the part that always amazed me wasn't their anger. It was their confidence. The confidence of people who'd been living off my generosity so long, they'd rewritten it into entitlement. I didn't reply. I went to work. I ran conduit, pulled wire, climbed ladders, and let the rhythm of real labor burn off the last of my doubt. By lunchtime, the initial shock had dulled into something steadier, an iron bar running through my spine. And yet, even with that bar, the guilt still tried to creep in, like smoke under a door. Because family conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. It just changes shape. That evening, Ethan came over with takeout and that careful look he got when he didn't want to push, but also didn't want to lie. "Any updates?" he asked. "They've declared war," I said, taking the bag from him. He set the drinks down, then leaned his hip against my counter. "And how are you?" I shrugged like it didn't matter, like my insides weren't buzzing. Ethan didn't accept that. He never did. He crossed the kitchen, cupped my face with both hands, and said quietly, "You're not a bad person for refusing to be used." The words hit harder than any insult my family had thrown, because he said it like it was obvious, like it didn't need debate. I swallowed. "They're going to make me pay for this." "They already have," Ethan said. "Now you're just stopping the payments." I tried to smile, but it came out crooked. That night, I slept like someone who'd finally put down a heavy bag, except my dreams kept trying to hand it back. 3 days later, Dad showed up. I was in my garage, half under my truck, when I heard tires crunch on my driveway. For a moment, I thought it was a neighbor. Then I heard a car door slam. My body knew before my brain admitted it. I slid out from under the truck and stood, wiping grease off my hands. Dad walked in like he owned the air in my garage, shoulders tense, jaw tight, face tired in a way that was half exhaustion and half fury. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" I asked, even though we both knew. He lifted his hands, palms out, like he was trying to calm a wild animal. "About you canceling the rent money." I didn't flinch. "Sounds like a budgeting issue." His mouth tightened. "We can't afford the full amount without your help." I stared at him, waiting, hoping, for even a flicker of shame, for him to hear how that sounded. Nothing. So I gave him the sentence he hated most, because it didn't let him steer the narrative. "That sounds like a problem," I said, "but it's not mine." His face reddened instantly. "Mallory, don't do that." "Don't do what?" "Don't act like this is some casual thing. We're talking about the roof over our heads." "And at Sunday dinner," I said, "we were talking about how I'm the reason this family has problems, remember?" He exhaled harshly, almost a growl. "You're being ridiculous." I tilted my head. Am I? Or am I being logical? Dad stepped closer, voice dropping into that parental tone he used when he wanted to regain control. "Your mother is beside herself. Alyssa's terrified. We need you to reverse it." There it was again. Not "I'm sorry." Not "we were wrong." Not even "we miss you." Just "we need you." Meaning, we need what you provide. I took a slow breath. Then maybe Alyssa should get a full-time job and contribute. Dad's eyes flashed. "She's trying." She's been trying for 6 years, I said. At what point do we call it what it is? You're doing it again, he snapped. Doing what? Judging, criticizing. This is exactly what we were talking about at dinner. I looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, Dad, do you actually believe I'm the source of this family's problems? He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again, like he could find a version of the truth that would still get him what he wanted. You have a pattern, he said. You create conflict. I nodded once. By refusing to be manipulated? His nostrils flared. By making everything about money. I almost laughed. You drove to my house to ask for money. That's not what this is. Oh? I stepped closer, just enough to make him feel the shift. Then what is it? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. He tried another angle, one I recognized immediately. Your mother and I sacrificed for you, he said, voice suddenly soft. We raised you, we supported you, and now when we need you, you abandon us. My stomach clenched. Old instincts flickered. But then I remembered Sunday dinner. Dad's calm voice calling me toxic. Mom's sharp tone, same thing, when I said I was being honest. Alyssa crying like I'd stabbed her, when all I'd done was point at reality. So I didn't crumble. I looked him in the eye and said, You didn't support me the way you supported Alyssa. You supported her comfort, even when it was built on my back. Dad's face turned stiff. That's not fair. No, I corrected. It's accurate. He stood there, hands clenched, trying to figure out what to say next. And then, like a man reaching into a coat pocket for a weapon he'd used 1,000 times, he pulled out the final threat. You're going to regret this when we lose the house. I blinked slowly. Then I said, It's a rental. Dad's eyes widened, and I realized something in that moment. Something small, but devastating. He hadn't even planned the manipulation carefully. He was just throwing whatever he could and hoping something would stick. He looked away first. Not me. Finally, he muttered, Fine, and stormed back to his car. When he drove off, I didn't feel triumph. I felt relief, like I'd closed a door that had been banging in the wind for years. 2 days later, I got a call from my uncle, Dad's brother, Gavin. We weren't close, but he'd always been the one relative who didn't look at me like I was a problem to manage. Mallory, he said, your dad called me. Mm-hmm. He wants me to talk sense into you. And are you going to? There was a pause, then Gavin sighed. Depends. What actually happened? So I told him. All of it. The rent, the dinner, the words, you're the reason this family has problems, said like a verdict. When I finished, Gavin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, So basically, they've been using you as a personal bank, and when you stopped, they blamed you for the withdrawal. My throat tightened, because hearing someone else say it, plain and ugly, made it real in a new way. That's the short version, I said. Mallory, Gavin continued, they're going to get evicted. I know. And you're okay with that? I leaned back against my kitchen counter and stared at the wall. Gavin, I said, if someone told you you were the reason for all their problems, then asked you to keep paying their bills, would you do it? He exhaled slowly. Fair point. They didn't lose me, I added. They spent me. Gavin didn't argue. He just said, your dad's not going to like what I tell him. Tell him whatever you want, I replied. My position isn't changing. A week later, right on schedule, another call came. This one made my stomach twist because the number wasn't family. It was their landlord. His name was Phil, a decent guy, mid-50s, owned several properties. I'd met him a few times when I helped my parents with minor repairs. Mallory, Phil said, careful and polite. I hope you don't mind me calling. Your dad gave me your number for emergencies. What's up? He hesitated. They're 2 months behind on rent. They mentioned you usually help with payments. I wanted to check if there was some kind of issue, maybe a bank error, before I start formal proceedings. I stared at my living room window, watching a leaf drift down outside. No bank error, I said. Phil paused. So, you're not helping anymore? No, I said, I'm not. He exhaled, like someone setting down a file he didn't want to carry. They didn't mention that. They didn't want you to know. Another pause. I appreciate the honesty, but I have to be straight with you. If they don't catch up by the end of next month, I have to start eviction. It's policy. Do what you need to do, I said. Phil sounded almost apologetic. Your dad suggested you might be open to a payment plan. I didn't even blink. No. Understood, Phil said quietly. Sorry to pull you into this. You didn't, I replied. They did. When we hung up, I felt something strange. Not guilt. Not satisfaction. Just clarity. They'd lied to the landlord. They'd framed me as a bank error. They'd turned my generosity into an expectation so normalized, they thought the money would come back if they just waited long enough. And then, week 6, Alyssa showed up at my job. I was on a site running cable trays in a new office building when my foreman walked up. "Mallory," he said, "there's a woman out front saying she's your sister. She's not leaving." My chest tightened. Of course she wasn't. I found her near the fence, arms crossed, mascara smudged like she'd rehearsed this in a mirror too. "You can't just show up here," I said. "You wouldn't answer," she snapped. "I had to." I kept my voice flat. "What do you want, Alyssa?" Her eyes watered instantly. "We're going to lose the house." "It's a rental," I said. She flinched as if the truth physically hurt. "You know what I mean," she whispered. "Mom and Dad can't afford it without you." Without me. Not without support. Not without family. Without me as a resource. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so no one nearby could hear. "Let me ask you something," I said. "Do you still think I'm judgmental and unsupportive?" She hesitated. I watched her calculation, trying to figure out which answer would unlock my wallet. "Alyssa," I pressed, "yes or no?" She swallowed. "Sometimes you can be harsh." That wasn't an apology. That was a confirmation. I nodded slowly. "So why are you asking me for money?" Her breath hitched. "Because we're desperate." And there it was. The first honest sentence she'd said all month. "It's not about family," I said softly. "It's about survival." Alyssa's tears spilled over. "Please, Mallory, I'm sorry. We were stressed." "Stop," I said, my tone calm but sharp. Sunday dinner wasn't stress. That was truth with a napkin folded neatly over it. Her mouth trembled. "What do you want me to do? Get on my knees?" "I don't want you on your knees," I said. "I want you standing on your own feet." Alyssa shook her head, crying harder. "We can't." "Yes, you can," I interrupted. "You just don't want to, because wanting means effort, and effort is uncomfortable." Her face twisted, anger flashing through the tears. "You think you're better than us," she hissed. I stared at her, then gave her the answer she deserved. "I think I'm tired," I said. "That's what I think." Then I turned around and walked back onto the job site. Behind me, Alyssa sobbed into her hands. But I didn't turn back, because Ethan had been right. If I turned back now, I'd be paying forever. And in the distance, past the fence, past my sister's tears, I could already see what was coming next. They'd tried threats. They'd tried guilt. They'd tried ambush. Now they were going to try something worse. Something that didn't just aim for my wallet, but it aimed for my life. By the time eviction became official, my family had burned through every tactic except the one that mattered. Accountability. Phil called me again, not to pressure me, just to inform me. Court date set, 30 days to vacate. "I thought you might want to know," he said gently, "in case you wanted to help them move or something." "I won't," I replied. He didn't judge, he just sighed. "They tried to use you to get an extension." I raised an eyebrow. "How?" "They told me you were dealing with a medical crisis," Phil said, "that you'd be helping again once you recovered." I actually laughed, out loud this time. "A medical crisis?" "Yeah, your mom got vague when I asked what kind." Desperate people lie creatively. And apparently I was now terminally ill. Anything to buy time. The last 30 days were a circus. Mom started leaving voicemails that sounded scripted, like Dad was standing off to the side coaching her through each sentence. "We forgive you," she'd say. "Families get through this together. You're breaking my heart." Ashley switched strategies, sending friends, former classmates, even a girl I hadn't spoken to since high school. One afternoon, that girl cornered me at the grocery store. "Hey, Mallory," she said awkwardly. "I ran into Alyssa. She's really torn up. You guys might lose your childhood home." "It's their rental," I replied flatly, "and it's their responsibility." Her smile faltered. "Oh, I just thought family works both ways." "It does," I said. "That's the problem." I walked away before she could respond, already knowing how the story would be retold. Mallory's cold. Mallory's heartless. Mallory abandoned them. Fine. I'd rather be the villain than the ATM. Then, because chaos apparently travels in packs, something unexpected happened. Ethan's ex. Her name was Lena. She didn't contact me directly. That would have required courage. Instead, she messaged my mother. I found out when Mom, blocked everywhere else, emailed me from a new address with screenshots attached. Lena had told her I was emotionally unstable, that I was isolating Ethan from people who cared, that I'd always been difficult. She'd framed it as concern. I recognized it instantly. A woman who couldn't stand that Ethan had chosen peace over nostalgia. And my family, desperate, humiliated, cornered, had clutched onto her words like proof. See, even outsiders think she's the problem. Ethan was furious when I showed him. "She doesn't get to rewrite you," he said, "or us." "I know," I replied calmly, but she gave them exactly what they wanted. A new villain angle. A reason that wasn't money. It didn't work, because I didn't react. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I didn't engage. I just stayed gone. 2 days before move out, Dad called from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Mallory," he said, voice ragged, "please, meet me for coffee, 1 hour." I agreed on my terms. Public place, 1 hour, no promises. He looked awful when he arrived. Dark circles, wrinkled clothes, a man who'd finally run out of exits. "I'll be honest," he said. "We were wrong." "Which part?" I asked. "All of it." I nodded. "Okay." He blinked, clearly expecting more. "I'm apologizing," he said. "I heard you." "That's it?" I took a sip of coffee. "An apology doesn't erase 3 years of using me." "We weren't using you," he said weakly. I met his eyes. "If you weren't being evicted, would you be here?" Silence. "Answer enough." "We're going to be homeless in 2 days," he said finally. "Your mom's having panic attacks. Alyssa hasn't stopped crying." "Then get help," I replied. "There is no one else." "That's not my fault." He leaned forward, voice breaking. "What do you want me to do?" I didn't hesitate. "I want you to figure it out without me." He stared like I'd slapped him. "You're really going to watch us struggle?" "I watched myself struggle for years," I said quietly, "while you protected Alyssa from consequences and asked me to carry them instead." He stood up slowly. "Then I guess we're done." "I guess we are." 2 days later, they moved. A cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of town. Dad on the couch. Alyssa sharing a room with Mom, apparently furious about it. 3 months passed. Then 4. And something unexpected happened. They survived. Barely, but genuinely. Alyssa got a full-time job at an animal hospital. Mom picked up more hours. Dad worked 6 days a week. They were exhausted, but they were standing. A letter arrived one afternoon, handwritten, from Mom. She admitted everything. They'd taken advantage of me. They'd blamed me. I'd been right. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said she was proud of me. I put the letter in a drawer, not because it meant nothing, but because it didn't change my boundaries. Month 6, Alyssa called from a new number. "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. Good start. She told me she was paying rent now, saving money, actually proud of herself. "I blamed you because it was easier than blaming me," she admitted. I believed her. But belief doesn't require reconciliation. "Take care of yourself," I told her. "You too," she said. She hung up. I sat in silence, thinking about everything that had burned down and everything that had grown back differently. Rock bottom hadn't made them saints. It had made them adults. As for me, I still don't go to family dinners. I still don't send money. And for the first time in my life, I'm not the problem they can blame. I'm the boundary they had to learn to live without.